Hi everybody, how's it going? This is Eden Mabon of Light Cycle Astrology.com. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you all had a fantastic Valentine's Day. Today we are preparing for the new moon in Pisces. Now before we jump in, I want to mention that this channel is supported by my consultation service at lightcycleastrology.com. We are seeking new clientele for 2023, so if you're interested in becoming a client, please go to lightcycleastrology.com and leave me a message and I'll be happy to tell you more about that. All right, let's pull up the real-time clock. So today we are taking a look at the astrology leading up to the new moon, and let's just jump right into it. We see that by 5:35 p.m. this Saturday, February the 18th, the moon changes signs. So now we enter into Pisces season. So happy birthday, Pisces. Now, one interesting thing that this means is that the sun is changing temple hosts. In ancient astrology, we always look at how planets behave or what they signify as we relate them to where are they traveling, what sign are they moving through. If they're moving through a sign that is not their own sign, then they will have to express their significations through the lens or filter of that temple host. So we see that the sun recently goes through this conjunction, is still within the 3-degree range of orb to Saturn, and is now sort of almost like escaping this malefic kind of energy. Let me give you kind of a personal analogy for what I'm talking about here. I had this job for a while, for quite a long time actually, and the boss that was in charge of all of us, he was a pretty good guy, but there were parts to the interaction or the relationship that I had with him that were difficult. And there was this sense in which some of the time, I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this. Some of the time it's like you get along with your boss and it's almost like you're friends with them and there's this simpatico kind of a thing. But then at other times they may have their own personality characteristics that just rub you the wrong way or just doesn't gel. And this was the case for me and this former boss of mine, where there was part of me that was like, I really like this guy. But then there was another part of me that was like, just like oil and water, like God, And so I'm sure most of us can relate to this. This was a little bit the feeling that we had when the sun was traveling through Aquarius this last month. The sun enters into a sign where there is Saturn. Saturn is co-present with the sun. And that co-presence is what we refer to as reception, where Saturn can see everybody, he's at home in his own temple. So anybody that comes into his temple, he's right there to greet them. He's there to provide for them, to care for them, but also to make sure that they follow his rules and things like that. And as we know, Saturn is quite the rigid rule keeper, right? He's quite the disciplinarian. So there was this working relationship that we have with the sun traveling through Aquarius this last month with this co-presence with Saturn. Now, it's always better to have some co-present or some reception to a host lord for a planet. But sometimes that support comes with, a mixture of things that are difficult. So for instance, on the one hand, when I was at this old job, obviously the job provided, the support I needed to take care of my family and to give me a paycheck. And that was obviously good. And this person actually, he did look out for me. He watched my back, and that felt good. But it also came with a price to it. It wasn't all just easy. There were some very difficult things. So as we see the sun leaving Aquarius, trying to separate out from this conjunction with Saturn, and then moving into a neighbor sign where essentially the sun goes, I've broken free. I've left the old Saturn domicile dominion. I'm free of that dominion that was kind of a mixture of good and bad. But now the sun finds that he is traveling through a temple where he doesn't have co-presence with Jupiter. Jupiter's not in Pisces right now. And also Aries, where Jupiter is one of the places that Pisces doesn't have visibility to. Now, I have done this before on the channel where I've demonstrated this. If this is something new to you, let me go ahead and pull up my annotation just for a moment. Bear with me, guys. I'll get everything going here. But I've done this before on the channel, but sometimes this is either good to refresh and remember what this is, or if you're new to the channel, let me show you so you're not confused what I'm talking about. But within the doctrine of ancient astrology practice, it was very important that temple or domicile rulers had reception or visibility to their temples, because it was like saying there is a form of communication. It's almost like the modern day equivalent of like we get cell phone reception. When a host has reception to its temples, one of its temples, it's as if it still has a way of communicating to planets that are visiting its temple. It's like if I come over to your house and I say, hey, I'm the sun. I've just entered the temple of Pisces. So I want to do Jupiter things. You know, I'm interested in knowledge. And you know what would be really great is to learn about something spiritual or religious. Or, you know, do you have a biography on Kurt Cobain? Because that would be great. Now, if I can't get Jupiter on the phone, if Jupiter is not to be found anywhere in Pisces in the temple, how am I supposed to find the books? Or how am I supposed to figure out where things are? You know, when you're not in your own house, that's the kind of tension that you have. You have to work with somebody else's things and resources. You have to do you have to follow the rules that they want you to follow. There's all of these things. So in the ancient world, it was very important to see if there was some kind of reception between planets and the temple lords of the sign that the planet is traveling through. So I'm going to show you just for Pisces. Pisces can always see certain temples or certain signs. So for instance, Pisces can always see Taurus by whole sign sextile. Pisces can always see the sign of Gemini by square, Cancer by trine, can always see the temple of Virgo by opposition, and then coming back around, Pisces can always see the whole sign of Scorpio, the whole sign of Sag by square, and the whole sign of Capricorn by sextile. So, for instance, if Jupiter were in Taurus or in Gemini, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, Sagittarius, or Capricorn, there would be what's known as reception. The sun could call up Jupiter and say, hey, where are your Eastern philosophy? Where's your Eastern philosophy library? I can't find it. And Jupiter would go, oh yeah, no, it's it's over here in the temple. But that doesn't happen because Jupiter is in a sign presently that was thought to be a blind spot. So those are going to be, for Pisces, this is going to be a blind spot in Aries and a blind spot in Aquarius. So for each sign, the blind spots are always the two signs that are neighbors or flanking that sign. It's also going to be the two signs that are flanking the sign that is directly opposite to that sign. So Virgo is directly opposite to Pisces, so it's also the two signs that are flanking or neighbors to that sign as well. Those are the blind spots. So if Jupiter happens to be in Aries, Leo, Libra, or Aquarius, Jupiter cannot get reception. Jupiter cannot see Pisces. So Venus, Neptune, the sun, later on when Saturn ingresses into Pisces, the moon, as the moon travels through, any planet traveling through Pisces right now, until we have Jupiter in Taurus, every time a planet runs through Pisces, there is going to be no reception. So what does this all mean? Well, this is what it's like, going back to the boss analogy. It's like you finally get away from that boss, or you quit that job, and it's like, yes, I've made it outside of the purview of this old boss. But that boss wasn't just difficult, he was also providing some kind of support to you. Now the sun finds itself escaping that difficult malefic energy represented by Saturn and running through a malefic sign of Aquarius, but also the sun is like, well, I've gained liberty, but now I'm like unemployed, and where's the money? It's a little bit like that because of this, according to this doctrine of visibility and aversion. So Jupiter is in aversion to Pisces. The sun gains some freedom, feels better, feels like it has, some peace back to it, but it's as if, it's like, yeah, I don't really get that much help. I'm kind of like on my own. Now, this is mitigated in the short term because Venus, for just a few more days, is still in Pisces. And Venus is exalted in Pisces. So the sun shares co-presence with an exaltation lord. So for a few days, just one or two, the sun will have kind of an easy transition. It'll be like, oh, the exaltation manager is here. Well, that's great. I really like him. She's a really, wonderful lady or whatever. But watch what happens as the new moon comes through. The new moon travels by Saturn on Sunday afternoon, I guess, Eastern time, passes over, and then the new moon is right around, I'm going to say, sometime maybe 3 a.m. or so Eastern time. There's the new moon forming, and look how close Venus is to leaving Pisces, ingressing into the sign of Aries. Venus is now at 29 degrees and 55 minutes. So there's only 5 arc minutes to go. That's pretty much one day, I think. I think if we move forward just one day, we see that now Venus enters Aries. So this is the sort of trajectory that we're seeing. We're seeing the wrapping up of the synodic cycles between the sun and the moon, the restarting of a synodic cycle, as we talked about earlier Tuesday, and also the new moon coming through, wrapping up a lunation cycle. And the theme seems to be something like, well, we're getting away from something that may have been difficult a little bit, but we're also finding that we are going it alone and enjoying our personal freedom, but kind of without as much support. And that is the signature of the new moon, generally speaking. It's that, we're kind of footloose and free, but, we don't have a safety net quite as much as we did. And the other theme that is really prominent for the new moon is that we see, let me just go back to February the 19th, late Sunday. We also see that here is this imminent sign change for Venus that is about to happen. Venus is about to move out of the place where she has the greatest dignity in the whole zodiac. While Venus is traveling through the sign of Pisces, she is exalted, she is lifted up. So Venus, as a representation of good fortune, just general good things, just generally feeling good, feeling social, doing things that lead to joy or creativity, all of these beautiful Venusian things of desire and good fortune are they're oracularly seen to be going through a period now where they've been lifted up, they've been raised on high, but what goes up, as we all know, must come down. And so this is where the Venusian shoe, so to speak, kind of drops. And Venus then a day later moves into, not only moves out of the place where she is greatly exalted, but she actually moves into a sign that is opposite to one of her domiciles. And that means that she is feeling like a Venusian fish out of water. She likes beautiful, harmonious, Libran kinds of things. She just, when she goes into Libra, she's like, yes, I can be totally, fair and just, and we can really keep an eye on everything and, negotiate and be the peacemaker and, resolve differences between people at parties and what have you, and enjoy sophisticated music. And all these Venusian things are quite natural to Venus when she's in Libra. But she is as far away from that kind of place as she could possibly be as she travels through Aries. She is more like a ballerina on a Rambo 3 movie set, you know? And that she's just a little bit in a weird environment that is not very Venusian. It's Mars like. So that is what you see. You see that Venusian exaltation, you know, what goes up must come down. This is the moment where we've been kind of riding high with these Venusian themes. Now is the time where it not only comes down, but it comes down in a way in which it lands in a place that's kind of just weird altogether for Venus. So that is something that you could sort of roll around and think about archetypally. What does that mean for you personally? You know, how does that kind of shake out in your own life in terms of what's been happening with things? That's up to you to kind of decipher, but we will go into a rising sign horoscope video for Friday where we plug some of these features into your rising sign and figure out where all of this energy is landing in terms of the houses, because the houses will give us a little bit more of a personalized look at where is the Venusian energy dropping, where is the sun escaping and moving into that finds that he has more freedom, but also is a little bit without a safety net. We're going to plug some of those things into the house topics and delineate for that. So thanks so much, everybody, for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you again Friday for a rising sign horoscope video. Until then, have a good one. See you later. Bye.